All righty. Looks like we're live here.
Yep.
Awesome. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining our Glew Plus webinar today. We're going to give everyone just a couple of minutes, and then we'll go ahead and get this kicked off. If you guys want to leave a chat, let us know where you're tuning in from. That would be great. Mitch and I are both in Charlotte. Mitch, if you don't mind, just let me know once on your end, once we see kind of the attendees start to taper off, and then we can get this kicked off.
Sounds good. All right, Nick, I think we're probably good to get started. As a reminder, this webinar coming up will be recorded, so we will send this out to everyone afterwards. So those who can't make it will have that in their email boxes. So Nick, if you want to kick things off, and then we can get going.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great reminder, Mitch. This will definitely be recorded, sent out, and then also logged in the video section of our website for anyone who might want to refer back to it. Just before we get into the topic itself, quick introductions for any folks who haven't joined us on a previous Glew Plus webinar. My name is Nick Appenzeller. I lead our client success team and our Glew advisory team. And Mitch is a senior BI developer and analyst here at Glew. And these webinars are mostly focused on Glew Plus and our clients and prospects using Looker or looking to use Looker and Glew Plus. So we'll keep it focused on that today. As far as the topic today, we're going to be covering a question that we get a lot for multi-store brands. And what I mean by multi-store brands is someone who might have working with multiple domains. So that could be multiple domains across a singular brand. It might have a domain specific to the United States, specific to Australia, specific to the UK, or it may be someone who has just completely different brands and domains who wants to get a higher level view of all of their stores' performance wrapped up in one. So the topic is around multi-store reporting and some different things that come with that. So I think the most common and the one that we'll focus on today is currency conversions. So we'll be talking about exchange rates, how to leverage Glew Plus and Looker efficiently to perform those exchange rates and make sure you're getting all of your data into the same currency. And then also dive into kind of some more custom aspects to specific data sources. So maybe a singular source like Amazon that may have multiple currencies being pulled through the API. That's another use case that we get quite a bit of. How can we accommodate for this to make sure everything's within the same currency? So Mitch has a wealth of knowledge, a ton of experience on this topic, and will be the main presenter today. And then one other note, as we go through this, highly encourage questions if you have them, just to chat them. We'll make sure to leave about 5 to 10 minutes at the end of this call. And of course, we can go long if needed, but we'll have that dedicated time. And if it makes sense, if it's on topic for what we're talking about in the moment, we're happy to pause and answer questions that way too. So without further ado, Mitch, I'll pass it to you, and I'll let you know as chats come in as well so we can address those.
Awesome. Thanks, Nick. I am going to go ahead and share my screen here, and we can get going. Okay, cool. So yeah, like Nick said, I am a senior BI developer here at Glew. Been here for close to 4 years now. So am excited to walk you guys through our topics today on kind of aggregated store reporting, and are going to go into how we can combine store data, how we can do currency conversions across our different stores with different currencies, and kind of show you a lot of different ways to approach that. So, Nick, you're able to see my screen, correct?
Yeah, you're good to go.
Awesome. So the first thing that I wanted to walk through was just how to do some basic aggregated store reporting. So you're going to notice that if you have more than one store signed up with Glew, that each of your different stores has what we call a Glew account ID. This is basically an identifier that we assign to each of your different stores' data. So basically, what we're going to do is show how we can do combined reporting and then, separate it out across your different stores. So if I were to go into, and this is our Google AdWords Explorer. So this is for, we're looking at campaign related ad data for Google AdWords. So if I were to go to open up our AdWords campaigns table and scroll down and click sum of clicks and cost and impressions. And I've already got a timestamp filter set up here. And then you'll notice that I have these 5 Glew account IDs selected. So if I were to hit run right now, and that's going to run right now, the numbers that we see here are going to be across all of our 5 stores combined into one. So we'll have sum of clicks, sum of cost, and sum of impressions. And that's going to be for these 5 stores all together. The next thing we can do is, if we want to break this out by, let's say, the days for this week. So we can bring in our timestamp date and hit run. And this is going to group your clicks, your cost, your impressions by the date contained within this date filter, but it's still an aggregated total of these 5 stores. So a really good functionality that Looker has is the pivoting functionality. And we've actually done a webinar on pivoting prior to this. So if you need a refresher, or you haven't watched that yet, definitely go back into our archives and watch that. We walk through a lot of different examples on how to pivot data there, which is super helpful. So what we can do is go to that Glew account ID and hit that pivot data button. And what that's going to allow us to do is have our clicks, cost, and impressions data broken out not only by the date in our date range, but by our separate stores here. And if we open up our visualization, then you can see we've got a pretty clean table broken out by your different stores. Obviously, since this is just dummy data, we just have IDs. But if you were to use this name field here, if you have multiple stores, you would see your store name up there instead of those IDs. So additionally, you can also hit the totals and row totals if you want to get a little more insight into your pivot table. So we'll go ahead and hit run there. And now you have your, you still have your aggregated totals here and your row totals across date as well. So The pivoting functionality is super helpful, especially when it comes to wanting to group your data by more than one field. Definitely when it comes to breaking out by your stores and date, and then also being able to see kind of your total aggregated stores as well at the end is very helpful there. If you want to make this a little more basic, you definitely can. We can unselect date and go down to our Glew account ID, and we'll unpivot that. And so we just have our Glew account ID and our data. And now we just have our stores and our, aggregated data there. So are there any initial questions, just kind of how looking at different stores, aggregated data versus breaking out versus pivot, anything that I just covered? If you do, feel free to leave it in the chat. And if it's a pressing question, Nick, you can just interrupt me. We can address it. But for now, I'll keep going. The next thing that I wanted to talk everyone through is how to do aggregated store totals for different ad platforms. A lot of requests that we get are that a customer wants to build a table broken out by their stores for all of their different ad platforms. So, companies that have Amazon ads and Google AdWords and Facebook ads, TikTok, etc. They want to see that all in one table. So I'm going to walk through an example here of how we can do that. So right now, I'm just going to look at our cost/spend across all of our platforms. So the first thing I want to do is build this table with our Glew account ID as the grouping dimension, and then bring in the sum of cost metric that we want for Google AdWords. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to merge results. And this is going to be a process we're going to kind of replicate a couple times as we go through the different ad platforms. And actually, one second, I need to write down these.
And Mitch, really quick, while you're writing those down, we got a great question from Daniel in the chat, and he asked, can you layer multi-store plus an Amazon store? And I think it's actually perfect timing, because that exact scenario or example question is really what we're walking through now. And Daniel, just to kind of shed light on that a bit more, the same process that Mitch is going to walk through now, which will show merging results and joining in other ad platforms, will apply to Amazon. So you'll see here when he walks through the process, the full list of integrations will become available, and that should solve for what you're asking.
Yeah, great point. So the process, like Nick said, I'm about to walk through is, while I'm going to do it for different ad platforms, is definitely how you would do, if this was Shopify data and you had, your sum of revenue here based off your different Shopify stores, and you wanted to then bring in, your revenue from your Amazon stores, what you could do is hit merge results. Like I'm going to go into the Amazon Explorer and follow the same process that I'm about to show you. So yeah, definitely a great question here, and something we're about to walk through. So
Mitch, sorry to interrupt again. I apologize. Is there any way that you could maximize the size of your screen? We just got a note that it might be just slightly fuzzy.
Interesting.
I think you can do it if you hit something like Command and the plus button.
Yeah, I think for me, it's on a Windows. It is. Does that help at all?
Actually, yeah, it's becoming a little bit more visible. Yeah, that's.
So here, let me get.
Better. Oh yeah, okay. It's good.
Is that much better?
Yes, we can see it more clearly now. Thanks for doing that.
Yep, perfect. Okay, cool. So we'll go into our merge results, and what we can do is go into our next ad platform that we want to bring into this table. So for this, we can next go to our Amazon ads, and we'll just go to our campaign stats. And I'm going to enter in all of the same stores that we were using in our previous query. All right, and then we want to make sure that we're using the same date range. So we'll go into campaign stats, open up our timestamp date, and I believe we were doing October 9th to 15th. So next thing we want to do is like our first table, since it was grouped by Glew account ID, we want to bring that in. And then we want to pull in the same metric, which is sum of cost. Hit run. And none of those stores have that. Okay, perfect. So we are going to use a different ad platform. Actually, sorry about that. Clicked into the wrong table. We'll go into our Facebook ads. Here we'll go into our paid placements. So same thing, we will filter in our stores from the original. Pull in the same date range. Pull in our Glew account ID, and then our sum of spend, because spend and cost are the same metric, just some ad platforms call them different things. Okay, cool. So 3 of our stores that we had connected to AdWords also have Facebook. So we can now hit save. And right now we just need the Glew account ID to be the primary key between our 2 queries. This campaign's being AdWords, and then this paid placements being Facebook. So we'll go ahead and hit run. Great, now we can see the 3 that did have data is now grouped in the same table. Nick, should we do one more ad, maybe Bing?
Yeah, I think one more example would be good.
Okay. Great, so if we want to merge results again, we can just hit this add query. We can find our Bing tables, open up campaign performance, do the same thing. Sorry, this is so repetitive.
Yeah, to your point, Mitch, and I know Daniel asked this earlier. We're just using ad spend as an example here, but this could be gathering a slew of different metrics across different sources. And that add query button is what will allow you to continually add new tables from different sources to this combined merge results.
Okay, cool. So we select our store and then we do our sum of cost. Okay, so 2 of our stores have Bing connected, so we'll hit save and we'll hit run. Awesome. So now we have, our store with our individual AdWords spend, our Facebook spend, and our Bing spend. If we wanted to get some aggregated totals, we could go to add calculation. We'll do our, I think, cost from AdWords. Yep. Plus, and then because some of our numbers here are 0, we need to put a coalesce. Basically, what that does is if a number is null, it turns it into a 0 instead. That's exactly what this will do. I just do coalesce, parentheses, the field we want to add, comma 0, close parentheses. And that will alleviate, if you see here, these null values, which would usually make the equation just return a null value. So instead, it turns that into zeros. Okay, and we'll do this as total spend. Okay. And now we have our total spend there at the end. We can open up our visualization and we can, if you want to change the names up here, what we can do is label this as store. We can do this as AdWords Facebook spend, Bing spend, and total spend. So now that's what our table looks like. We have our aggregated store ad spend across all of that. It's important to note that the way Glew is set up is that you won't be able to have more than one AdWords or Facebook or Bing, any of those platforms. It's basically a one-to-one relationship between your Glew store, which is this Glew account ID, and your Facebook account or AdWords account. You can only have one account for each Glew store. So if you have multiple Facebook ad accounts, you will have multiple Glew store IDs. So you need to make sure that you're accounting for all those IDs when you're wanting to get a full look at all of your ad platform data. Okay, cool. So before I get into all of the currency conversion stuff, please let me know if there are any questions with what we just went over with all the aggregated store data.
I don't think there's any questions right now outside of the one we answered for Daniel, but I'll continue to monitor that and definitely let you know, Mitch.
Awesome. Okay, cool. Well, let's get into currency conversion. So this is definitely something that is really important for our customers that have more than one store, especially stores that are in different countries. So in this example, I have selected 5 different stores here, and they all have different currencies. So in this Glew accounts table, we keep a log of each of your Glew stores and what currency that data is on. So we are now looking at Shopify orders data here. That's what Explorer in. So if we just go ahead and select our Glew account ID and our Glew currency, and we hit run, and you can see that these 5 stores all have a different currency. So the next thing that we can do is open up our exchange rates table. And from here, you're going to notice that there's a list of a lot of different currencies. The currency that you choose is what currency you want to convert to. So in this example, let's say that we want to convert all of these stores' data into US dollars. So what I can do is go down here and select USD. And for now, we'll hit run. Actually, I just realized I don't have a date filter on this yet. So before I do that, I'm going to add a date filter. So let's just look at some data from last week. So we'll go ahead and hit run here. Cool. Okay, so now you'll notice that we have a lot more lines of data now, and you'll see that this Glew account ID is replicated a lot, as well as the currency, and that's because this exchange rates is grouped by day in this exchange rates table. So essentially how that exchange rates table works is every day once the market closes, we take all of the data from our data source that gives us the exchange rates between every single currency as of market close of that day. So one thing that's important to note is that if you're looking at today's data, you won't be able to convert currency because the market hasn't closed yet and we haven't run that import overnight. So we have all the currency rates updated as of yesterday, but today's rate, since the market's still open, or I guess it just closed, but then that import will run overnight so that the next morning you'll get yesterday's conversion rate. So one important thing to note there. So what we can do now is, because we have all these different conversion rates for different days, so let's go ahead and bring in our date field so that we can see the date and what the exchange rate was on that day. And while we're doing that, we can go ahead and let's just pull in a metric like sum of revenue. So we'll go ahead and hit run here. Cool. So now what we have is our store, what the exchange rate was on that day right here, and then what the revenue was for that day. So now what we can do is add a table calculation here that takes our sum of revenue that we pulled and multiply that by the exchange rate. And it'll be in US dollars, and we can call this converted currency. Cool. So now this right-hand column is all in US dollars for every day within this date range, broken out by our different stores. One thing you'll notice is that table calculations, Looker does not give you the ability to total that column. So, and I'll show you a little workaround that we can do with that in a sec. But you'll notice that it doesn't allow you to do the total of a calculated column. So once this loads, so right now, if we open up our visualization, we would have our table, which would show all of our converted currency here. But let's say you wanted to say, I just want to see like yesterday or, in this date range, what our total US dollars was across all of our stores. Apologies for the dog. What we can do is, actually, let's do this first. We can add another calculation, and basically we're just going to sum this converted currency column. We'll call this currency converted total. Do save. And now we have the total there. So what we can do is if we hide these columns from our visualization, except for the last column, then we can open up the visualization, go to our big number, and there we have a big number visual that we can add into our report. Okay, so the next thing I'll go through is how we can do kind of aggregated across our stores across the date range. So I'm going to clear all these out. And we are going to pull back in our Glew account ID. And we are going to pull in our currency. And let's go ahead and just run that again so we can see our different stores. Okay, cool. So the two ways I'm about to show you on how to do this kind of as a more aggregated total here is going to be not exact, but pretty darn close. So what I mean by that is what we can do is go into our exchange rates table and we can go to US dollar, aggregate it, and we can do any of these. So we can take the average of the exchange rates over this 6-day period. We can do whatever the maximum of the exchange rate was over the period. So let's just do that for now, and then we can pull in our sum of revenue. All right. And then same thing, we'll do our table calculation here. Some revenue. multiply that by the US dollar. Call that converted currency, same thing. And now we can hide these from our visualization. And then we have our different stores and their converted currency in US dollars per day based off of the average of the US dollar across this range. So the last way that I wanted to show you was going to kind of be the same way, but let's say that you have, actually we'll keep that. So let's say you want to convert based off of a flat rate that you don't want to change. So you can do the same thing where let's change this. And instead of doing times that field we brought in, if you wanted to say, oh, I'm in GBP, I always want that exchange rate to be X. And honestly, I'm off the top of my head, I'm not sure what it is. I think it's close to even. So we'll just say like 0.95. So the same thing, you can just hard code that in. Oh, it doesn't like. I think I need to do this. Nope. Needed a 0. Okay, good to know. So then same thing. You can just hard code it that way. And if you wanted to, change that basis off the currency, this would be a little more complicated, but what we can do is do a case statement. So case when currency is equal to, let's do GBP. Then we'll do comma, 0.95 or 0.95. Close parenthesis, comma, when, and then, same thing, we'll do currency is equal to, I think one was MYR I had, comma, 0.8, and then, et cetera. So you can build a, oh, I'm sorry, I would need this in this. There we go, yep. And then need that again. And we'll just, for now, just say this as null. Oh. This. Okay. So you can just keep kind of copying that as such. So for now, I'll just hit save and I'll show you how those two were converted. I just didn't do the others yet, but if you need to pause the video there and take a look at how I did that, basically you would just keep adding the when statement a couple more times to account for the euro, the US dollar, and I think that's the Korean won. I could be totally wrong on that. Okay, cool. So are there any questions on what I just walked through there? I'll move on unless, Nick, you point me in the direction if there's a question here.
No questions so far. That was clear in mind. And to your point, we can, especially because the screen's a bit fuzzy in our follow-up communication, we can reference that little table calc case statement that you just did.
Hold on, is that better?
Yeah, it appears to be okay in some areas. And then I think it's more so just like a buffering loading thing. I don't think it's anything that you're doing, but I think you're all good.
Okay. All right. Well, we can move on to our last example here, and that's going to be a common occurrence with Amazon data, where unlike the stores that we just showed, where each store has one currency, a lot of times within your one Amazon store, there are going to be multiple currencies across your different orders. So I'm in the Amazon Orders Explorer here. And what you'll notice is that there's actually a currency field within the orders table. Now, normally, with our other examples, I was pulling that currency field from that Glew accounts table, which is kind of like a standard table that we store your store's information. This is actually coming from Amazon's API, telling us each order what currency the order was placed in. So what we can do is first see it on just a very granular level. We can, pull the order ID. We can pull the currency and go ahead and do a sum of revenue. Awesome. So you can see how, these orders, some are in US dollar. Here's a euro. Here's a GBP. So this is a good example. And you can see we have some Mexican peso. So the next thing we want to do is let's go ahead and bring in the date so we can see that. And then we will go into our exchange rates table again and pull in the US dollar field. Okay, cool. So then same thing, we can hit our add calculation, do sum of revenue, multiply that by the US dollar, all that converted currency, and pretty much the same process, but just a little different on how we would, replicate that within our Amazon data. So now this is our converted currency for our revenue. We don't have to look at it at an order by order basis. If we wanted to just sum this by the different currency and the date, what we can do is remove the order ID. And now we have all of our different currencies for our different days, the revenue attributed to each, and the converted currency on the right here. And then same thing, if we wanted to see just an aggregated total, we could just do our sum of converted currency that total, save it. And then same thing if we just hide these from visualization, we can get our big number here for our total converted currency for this time frame in US dollars. So all right, well, that was the last example that I was going to walk through. Nick, off the top of your head, is there anything I missed that I should hit on before we open it up for questions?
I'm going through the list right now, and it seems like you did a great job reviewing the different scenarios that we most frequently get written in about. I think that covers most of the bases just in terms of aggregate store reporting or multi-store reporting and currency conversion / exchange rate. So I think you've done a great job. And I guess, yeah, to your point, Mitch, we can open it up to any questions, which is right on time.
Sweet.
And feel free to, if anyone's listening that has, a question that's kind of outside of this topic, feel free to send that in as well. And most likely we can answer that for you here. Give it about 2, maybe 3 minutes until 4:50, and then I'll go ahead and close it out and just kind of let you guys know where you can find this content in the future. All right. All right, Mitch, I think that's it. Everyone who joined, thank you so much for tuning in. Mitch, thanks for presenting today and walking through these topics. As we always say, kind of when we end these out, if you guys are a current customer of Glew and you have a topic that has not yet been touched on that you're eager to learn more about in regards to Glew Plus and Looker, please feel free to write into us, whether that's through support@glew.io email or just directly through your account manager or myself. We want to make sure that we support you guys and all the questions that you have relating to Glew Plus. So excited to hopefully be receiving some of those, and definitely tune in for the next webinar, which will have some email communications on in regards to time and topic. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone.